DARVO and Republican politicians, hypocrisy in the spotlight. DARVO, an acronym for Deny, Attack, Reverse Victim, and Offender, is a psychological manipulation tactic often used by perpetrators to evade accountability. Coined by psychologist Jennifer Freyd in 1997, DARVO describes a pattern where someone denies their wrongdoing, attacks the accuser, and portrays themselves as the victim. In politics, this strategy is particularly potent, allowing figures to deflect criticism and maintain public support despite contradictions. Republican politicians, often vocal about moral or policy stances, have faced accusations of DARVO when caught engaging in the very behaviors they condemn. Below, we explore notable examples of Republican figures whose actions clashed with their public positions, highlighting how DARVO manifests in their responses. Understanding DARVO in politics. DARVO begins with denial. The accused rejects the allegations outright, often claiming the incident never happened or was misconstrued. Next, they attack the credibility of the accuser, whether it's the media, political opponents, or whistleblowers. Finally, they reverse roles, painting themselves as the true victim of a smear campaign or unfair persecution. This tactic is effective because it sows confusion, shifts focus from the original issue, and rallies supporters who see the politician as unfairly targeted. In the polarized landscape of American politics, DARVO thrives, especially among those with strong public personas built on moral or ideological purity. Case studies: Republican politicians and hypocrisy 1. Ted Cruz and personal conduct. Senator Ted Cruz, RTX, has long championed conservative family values and criticized policies he claims undermine traditional morality. Yet in 2021, during a devastating Texas winter storm that left millions without power, Cruz was photographed boarding a flight to Cancun, Mexico for a family vacation. His constituents faced life-threatening conditions, while Cruz, a vocal advocate for Texas resilience, appeared to prioritize personal comfort. Deny. Cruz initially claimed the trip was a last-minute decision to accompany his daughters, framing it as a parental duty rather than a vacation. Attack. He criticized the media for focusing on his trip, calling it a distraction from the broader crisis and accusing outlets of partisan bias. Reverse victim and offender. Cruz portrayed himself as a victim of a gotcha media frenzy, suggesting the outrage was manufactured to damage his reputation rather than a response to his abandonment of constituents. The backlash was swift, with even some Republican voters expressing dismay. Cruz returned to Texas, but his DARVO tactics failed to fully quell the criticism, as the visual evidence of his departure was undeniable. 2. Marjorie Taylor Greene and COVID-19 hypocrisy. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, RGA, has been a vocal opponent of COVID-19 mandates, decrying mask wearing and vaccine requirements as government overreach. She's accused Democrats of fear-mongering and infringing on personal freedoms. However, in 2020, reports surfaced that Greene had invested in companies producing COVID-19 tests and treatments, profiting from the same pandemic she downplayed. Deny. Greene dismissed the significance of her investments, claiming they were part of a diversified portfolio managed by advisors, not a deliberate choice. Attack. She accused the media and Democrats of fabricating a scandal to smear her, labeling the reports as fake news designed to undermine her anti-mandate stance. Reverse victim and offender. Greene framed herself as a victim of a witch hunt, arguing that her financial decisions were being unfairly scrutinized because of her outspoken conservative views. This contradiction highlighted a pattern. Greene's public rejection of pandemic measures contrasted with private actions that capitalized on the crisis. Yet DARVO allowed her to redirect the narrative toward media bias. 3. Mike Johnson and Moral Posturing. House Speaker Mike Johnson, RLA, has built his political identity on Christian conservatism, advocating for strict moral standards and family values. In 2023, it was revealed that Johnson and his son monitored each other's internet activity to avoid pornography, a practice he touted as accountability. However, critics pointed to Johnson's selective outrage. He condemned progressive policies as morally corrupt, but remained silent on GOP colleagues embroiled in scandals, such as George Helmy's alleged ethics violations. Deny. Johnson downplayed accusations of hypocrisy, insisting his personal accountability measures were unrelated to his political stances. Attack. He criticized liberal media for mocking his faith-based practices, calling it an attack on Christian values. Reverse victim and offender. Johnson portrayed himself as persecuted for his religious beliefs, framing the scrutiny as evidence of a broader anti-Christian agenda. Johnson's DARVO response deflected from the inconsistency between his moral grandstanding and his reluctance to address GOP misconduct, reinforcing his image as a victim of cultural warfare. 4. Lauren Boebert and Family Values Representative Lauren Boebert, RCO, has campaigned on pro-family platforms, criticizing progressive policies as threats to traditional values. In 2023, Boebert faced public embarrassment when she was ejected from a Denver theater for disruptive behavior, including vaping and inappropriate physical conduct with a companion. This incident clashed with her image as a defender of decorum and morality. Boebert initially claimed she was unfairly targeted by theater staff and denied the full extent of her behavior. Attack. She accused the media of blowing the incident out of proportion, suggesting it was a coordinated effort to tarnish her reputation. Reverse victim and offender. Boebert framed herself as a victim of cancel culture, arguing that her personal life was being weaponized to distract from her political message. The incident, captured on security footage, undermined her credibility, but her DARVO tactics rallied supporters who saw her as a target of liberal overreach. The broader pattern. These examples reflect a recurring theme: Republican politicians leveraging DARVO to navigate scandals that expose contradictions between their rhetoric and actions. The tactic is particularly effective in a media environment where partisan loyalty often trumps evidence. By denying wrongdoing, attacking critics, and claiming victimhood, these figures shift the narrative away from their hypocrisy and toward a broader culture war. The prevalence of DARVO among Republicans doesn't imply exclusivity. Politicians across the spectrum use similar strategies. However, the GOP's emphasis on moral absolutism, e.g., family values, fiscal conservatism, creates a higher bar for consistency, making contradictions more glaring. When caught, DARVO allows them to maintain support among voters who prioritize ideological allegiance over accountability. Why DARVO works. DARVO's success lies in its exploitation of cognitive biases and partisan tribalism. Supporters are more likely to forgive inconsistencies when the politician frames themselves as a victim of a hostile media or opposing party. Social media amplifies this effect, with platforms like X enabling rapid dissemination of DARVO narratives to sympathetic audiences. Moreover, DARVO aligns with the GOP's broader messaging of grievance politics, where conservatives are portrayed as under siege by a liberal establishment. Moving forward, addressing DARVO. Combating. DARVO requires a commitment to transparency and accountability. Voters and media can counter the tactic by focusing on evidence, emphasizing verifiable facts, like Cruz's flight records or Boebert's theater footage, limits the effectiveness of denial. Calling out the pattern. Naming DARVO when it occurs helps demystify the tactic, making it harder for politicians to manipulate narratives. Demanding consistency. Holding politicians to their stated principles, regardless of party, reduces the space for hypocrisy to flourish. Conclusion. DARVO is a powerful tool for Republican politicians caught in hypocrisy, allowing them to deflect accountability and maintain their base's loyalty. From Ted Cruz's Cancun fiasco to Lauren Boebert's theater scandal, the pattern is clear: deny the offense, attack the accuser, and claim victimhood. While effective in the short term, DARVO risks eroding public trust in the long run as voters grow weary of contradictions between words and deeds. By recognizing and challenging this tactic, citizens can demand greater integrity from their leaders, fostering a political culture where actions align with rhetoric. By Scott Young, aka Sinfamous Gamer.